Alright, I'm going to have to just do it as it is because there are things that I have no idea. You see it's really empty on my screen. My viewer counter has ceased to work. I have no idea why that's not working. I'm not sure about my tickers that are going across. They seem to have stopped working as well. But I will say, as always, I'd like to give a quick shout out to my 3rd tier and above patrons, Reese and Wayne. Thank you very much. And also Tim as well. Without you, these shows wouldn't happen, and it is working. It's just down there. It's just all of me other bits and pieces aren't working because I think it's the internet. I had to restart the internet just before I started the show tonight, and so yeah, half the stuff isn't working, and also I'm getting half my eyes are covered by me bots, by me bits and pieces. But welcome to the show, everyone. Let me just turn that down just a little bit because I saw that red line just as I did that. Welcome to the show. If you want to have a shout out or if you want to just help support the channel, don't forget to check out the Patreon link in the description below. And I will also type in that there, and I think that works. Yeah, hopefully that's not going to just repeat it twice in the chat. I have no idea how many times. Yep, I think that's done it twice. Anyway, yeah, the internet is falling apart tonight, so I have no idea what's going on. But also, don't forget, if you want to get your pictures shown on here, don't forget to send them to any of my social media. Their words, they're not working. I am really flustered tonight. But yes, all of my social media, don't forget to pop on any of your pictures. Let me know there. Use the various tags here. If it's just a regular model, use the hashtag BofOPSLive. And if it's a Conquest model, much like tonight is all about after our Christmas hiatus, use BofOPS Conquest. There. I'll get used to my spatial awareness again. You can tell I took a couple of weeks off of this, don't you? Because I'm all over the place. But it's issue 13 tonight, which is fantastic. I don't have another delivery yet, which I have seen some people, I think, are getting their deliveries. So we've got 2 magazines in the bank. This is one of them, and I've got one for next week. So we've got 2 weeks between now and when those are done for me to have a delivery so that we don't miss any of the episodes. Hopefully I'll get a delivery next week. In which case then we'll be doing issue number 14 next week with a delivery in the bank. And then we've got 4 weeks, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, Hatchet Parks Works will not screw us over any more than they already have. So anyway, with all that, don't forget, send your pictures in to me at any of my social media, preferably on Facebook, because then I can save it quite easily to my computer. But you can send it to me in a private message on Instagram as well. You get put on my story, and also have various pictures cycling through there, like Nuts Paint there, and also Reese's towel that was just there. Oh, and Reese's towel again. It seems to be cycling through. It's on random. So, all right. So we've got Reese, we got Chris, we got Wayne in the chat. Anybody else? If you're in the chat, feel free to jump in, say hello. We'll have a talk. Hopefully everything's working. Yes, they will. It's Hatchet. Yeah, they will screw me over. They always will. But hopefully we'll be alright. And so we have, actually, you know what I haven't done is I don't have any lights. I've put my lights on. Here we go. There's a little bit bright, but let's put my lights on over in my area. We've got issue number 13 of Conquest. We get our first lot of terrain in this, which is fantastic, and the sprues at the back there. We'll have a look through the magazine first. I will build the container for those of you who want to see, because I don't think the magazine portion of this show is going to be very busy today. So I will build the container for the end of the show, and also show you, you might see them just in the bottom here. I've got a couple of containers to show you that I've done. To have a little bit of a chat about what we could do in terms of painting them, for me to do a show, a video, how to paint them. Now I prefer to paint my containers and most of my terrain, to be fair, with an airbrush, but we'll get to that bit later on in the show. So I think I've done all of my announcements, I think. So we'll get cracking on with the show proper. So let's bring up the nice big picture of the Conquest magazine so we see the front page, which as always I gently get between my forefinger and my thumb and throw it away. So what do we have in this episode? We're coming in with the a little bit of fluff about the Honor of Ultramar, which is actually, if you've been playing the missions, this is where the missions have been set with the Honor of Ultramar aboard the a planet, aboard the ship above a planet. Now, you know what? I'm on issue 13 now. We know that there are people out on YouTube that are doing issues 18 already. They buy them from the store. They've had enough of their subscription, so they just buy them in. Which is fair enough, which I know when we hello everyone. I just realised you didn't say hello earlier. I think you did say hi. That's why I knew you were in. Oh no you didn't, you just said sweet we have music. No, that's fair enough. Okay, yeah, so people have already got number 18 already in they've bought it from the shops, and you know, I'm still waiting for Hatchet to actually fulfill deliveries. So I know that the missions, once we start getting more and more models, you start getting the when you get the big playmat, you're also starting to kind of outgrow the original cardboard terrain, which off the top of my head I'm not really sure where I've put, because I haven't been playing the missions. I wonder if I've got it to hand. It should be to hand quite close by, actually. I do have various bits and pieces stuck in my drawer next to me, but I haven't been playing the mission, so I don't really know. I haven't really been playing along, so I don't really need it to hand. So it's been tucked away out of the way to keep it nice and safe, and now when I do actually want it, I've forgotten where I put it, which is helpful. So yeah, I'm not sure where that is, but anyway, it's you know, it's a cargo hold in the ship. Yeah, the big playmat in issue 18. That's when, you know, the Ultramarines leave the ship, which is the Honor of Ultramar. So yeah, that's basically what I was saying. Basically, is that the Honor of Ultramar is where you've been playing so far, and you will eventually leave that to go planet side. So I am going to pop that into the, let's have a look at what's on the other side of that page. So yeah, there's just plenty of fluff about that particular ship, and that pops in behind Space Marine chapters 2.3. This is 2.4. It gets nice and in there and nicely, fits in there nicely. It's a kill team board. It's slightly bigger than a kill team board. I can't remember off the top of my head now. Big Mech Dan Skull, if you want to go and check out his page, his YouTube channel, he's literally just done a video, and he did actually measure it, and it's slightly bigger than a kill team board. The original board is now getting too small with the minis we have. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you've got things like, you know, you've got vehicles coming in now. So, you know, things, they take up quite a bit of space, and then when you start adding terrain to it as well, which we are doing this week, yeah, it's starting to get really small. So yeah, we've got 5 more issues of my shows to go before we actually get to that stage. But yeah, you soon outgrow the tiny board, unless of course, like me, you stick to kill team, and then it's perfect. Okie dokie, so we're moving on to the warp. So we have a little bit of fluff about the warp, and what it is, and what it's about, which is basically where all the ships fly in the Imperium, because just generally they have to get across the galaxy. And it's the quickest way across, apparently. In a long time, what was it? In a time long forgotten, it was the discovery of the warp space that allowed the first human colonization efforts across the galaxy. By entering this alternate dimension, it was possible to quickly travel the vast distances between star systems, allowing mankind to colonize many thousands of worlds. Which is cool, but spoiler alert, you know, it's also hell. So, if you've seen Event Horizon, apparently Event Horizon was inspired by 40k. That's just what I heard. I've got no basis of fact on that. That's just the internet talking. But yeah, so basically it's hell. It's just horrible. And that's where everybody's thoughts and feelings go. And that's where they go. But we have a little bit more fluff about it. This is a really fluff heavy book, by the way. Fluff and rule heavy. We'll get to that in just a minute. But yeah, we get to plenty of fluff about the warp and what it is and how they get around it with navigators, which is cool. And then we have a little bit of talk about what an STC system is, which is really cool because basically this is what, you know, this is how they make everything in the 40k, because nobody invents anything. It's just a computer system telling everybody how to make everything. Which, you know, there's plenty of fluff about that and about what it is and what it's about, which is really cool because obviously these containers would have been made by an STC system, and so are rhinos, and I imagine, yeah, and land raiders and storm ravens and, well, buildings as well. I imagine. I think buildings are done by STCs as well. And yep, and then the Adeptus Mechanicus keeps going out looking for them, and they'll try their best to find them, which is cool. STCs. So essentially, the 40k universe is a massive council estate where every building looks the same, and you have burnt out cars on every corner. Right, how to build an armored container. So the first scenery, instructionable, is that instructions? That's, yep, I'm England, yep, there we go. So yeah, first scenery, nice and easy. Fantastic little tip here. After building stage 2, you may wish to use elastic bands to hold the container together as the glue dries, which is fantastic choice. Elastic bands are brilliant. In fact, I use elastic bands, which we'll get to when I build this later on in the show. And so we have the container. We have 4 boxes and 3 barrels. I think, yeah, obviously we need to, I will build one of the barrels, but it's literally a case of putting the 2 sides together, and then I'll build the container at the end of this episode as well. So, and it's nice and simple. Essentially, if we have just a quick look at this, it's 2 sides, a top, a bottom, yeah, a bottom and a top, and then after number 2 you can put the your elastic bands around, and then we put on the doors and some keypads. Now I like to actually put the I glue everything together. You can leave it open, but if you leave it open you end up having to paint on the inside, and I really can't be bothered to do that, so I just close all of my containers up. I might build one that is open, but it's going to be open because it's damaged, to allow, you know, if you try and paint inside there, you try and get your hand down there to paint. Whereas if I build one, you know, we're going to have 3 of these containers turning up. I've also already got a lot of containers. I've got a lot of containers, so I can really mess around with them. In fact, I'm going to show you one that I've been messing around with later. But yeah, if you want to build one where it's blown open or something, or ripped open or something, you know, you could probably get your hand in there to paint it nicely. So you could have one open, but we'll see. We get another one of these by issue 20 at the latest, if not earlier, you think. To be honest with you, you're going to get all of them. I think, if I remember rightly, the next delivery, not the delivery I'm waiting for, but by the next delivery, which will be issues, what are we on? I've got issue 13, that's 14 up there. 15, 16, 17 and 18, I think you get another one. And in issues number 20, 21, 22 and 23 you get the other one. But in the next 2 deliveries I think you're going to get all 3 containers. Don't quote me on that, but that's what I think, because people have already been, you know, I think I've seen the back of the issues that people have got now, which is issue number 18, and they've already got all 3 containers done, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we're going to get the containers of the first piece of scenery we're going to finish. We're going to get all 3 containers very, very quickly. So yeah, that's how to build a container. We'll get round to that in a bit. And again, like I said, the boxes are pretty much there's nothing to put together, but the barrels are just there, putting the 2 sides. We do have bolters on. I might put the bolters on the one that I built today. I don't tend to, because bolters have rules, and I tend to like my scenery to be fairly yeah, I don't tend to use scenery very often unless they're really easy rules. Which, I mean, sticking a gun on a container is an easy rule, but then obviously you got to fight over who's got the gun, who's got control of the gun. But yeah, I'll put the guns on the container, on this container with the issue. But yeah, we'll get on with building that. And if you notice, we're going straight into missions. There is no painting guide in this issue, and I believe, and again, this is Big Mech Danskull. I do try and keep up with his Conquest show. The reason there's no painting guide in this book is because next week, if I open it that way, we're going to have Mechanicus Standard Grey and a dry brush, which, in all fairness, is probably going to be the majority of how to paint these things. So, we're going to paint how to paint a container is in the next issue when you get the paint and the brush. Don't glue the guns after you make them. You know what, to be honest with you, the hole, we'll get to these in a bit, but the hole isn't that massive, and I just don't want to have some tiny storm bolters flying around. Don't forget, I already own, let's see if I can count them in my head, 3, 6, 9, I already own 9 containers, I think, and then I'm going to be getting another 3 in Conquest. So that's 12 containers. Each one of those having 2 storm bolters is 24 storm bolters lying around. There's a lot of storm bolters, so I tend to just not put the storm bolters on the containers and leave them for something else. Maybe I'll do some bigger piece of scenery at some point in the future and use them as decoration. So I do tend to like to keep my scenery glued together if I can, just to stop it from flapping around. You know, scenery doesn't get treated as nicely as models do. You tend to throw it around, you tend to just chuck it in a box, and so yeah, I probably will glue the storm bolters. So moving straight on to the missions then. So no painting, but straight on to the missions. It's basically more of a case of I can't remember off the top of my head what the last mission was. It was a while ago now. Let me just have a look, see if I can have a look. Oh, we go from mission 10 on to mission 12. Where's mission 11? There seems to be something going amiss there. Okay, well, yeah. So, I don't know where mission 11 is. Have I misplaced it somewhere? Seems a bit odd for me. The Foul Blight Spawn. No, that was the last issue, wasn't it? Huh. It's kind of missed issue mission 11. Unless, as with Hatchet Partworks, mission 11 is somewhere else. That's interesting. Hang on a minute, let's have a look through here. Oh no, I'm spoiling the rest of the show doing that. Nope, there isn't a mission 11 in there. Alright, so mission 11 is just another standard mission really. You got 5 Plague Marines with how many of those is there? What you need, 12 Poxwalkers against 3 Reavers, 3 Intercessors and a Lieutenant Calcius. Where obviously it's showing you just popping the terrain over the marked areas on the board really. And here we go. Let's have a look at this. Data sheets. Look at this. So here we go. We're going to start getting the data sheets now. So we have a explanation. So far in the magazine, all you've been getting is a little box on the missions saying, you know, you need to shoot. Let's grab this one here. So far, all you've had is these little boxes here: ballistic skill 3 up, weapon skill 4 up. To wound, you need to roll that or that. To wound, close combat, you need 3s, 2s. You get your attacks, your saves, and your wounds, and so on. And it's all in this nice little box here. However, in this issue, it's explaining what a data sheet actually is, and this is how you would usually get in your codexes or your indexes, whichever you've got, which is just like that. So virtually the same thing. Excuse me. And so it explains what what every part of this means and what it's for, and then we move over to the data sheets themselves, which all of these go into, I'm not actually sure where it goes. Tutorial on the mission 12. Space Marine data sheets number 1 is section number 3, I imagine. Yeah, tutorials, section 2 of the rules. Tutorial. Oh, hello. Right, so yeah, so the I'm having a look now at the magazine, at the folder. Section 1 for the I'm just looking here, Space Marine data sheets number 1. We got tutorial mission number 12. So if we have a look here, we got tutorial rules. So the data sheet comes behind the rules, after the tutorials and the rules. So I think we're going to start seeing, we might actually see the end of the tutorial now, which might be why that is tutorial mission 12. And then on the back of that is a data sheet explained, which moves on to the data sheets, perhaps. No, because it's going to go straight into the rules. Oh, you know what? This magazine is so confusing. Alright. This is why I do a show every 10th episode, to actually see how this magazine is actually starting to look. Because I have absolutely no idea how this is going to read now. With a tutorial there, theoretically there's a rule section, and then we start putting the data sheets in. So when we get to issue number 10, issue number 20, we'll have a look through that folder again and seeing how it looks. But we have the data sheets for the Intercessor Squad, the Reaver Squad, Lieutenant Calcius from way back in issue number 5, and a nice little blank page there, so we don't have any odd looking pages. So they are capable of doing it, and that's obviously for the that's the data sheets for that particular mission. And then we have the data sheets here for the Plague Marines and the Poxwalkers for the Death Guard. And then finally we have a page here that is about how to use the terrain. So, you know, you're 1 inch away from the terrain piece, so you can move an inch up to it. From the bottom to the top is 12 inches. It's 12 inches, it's 2 inches, so you then minus that from your movement, and then moving on to 3 inches to use up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches of movement from the front of the base to the front of the base. which is nice and easy. What are the weapon options on the intercessors? Sorry, Reese, I didn't see that comment. The weapon options on the intercessors. Let's have a gander here. This unit contains 1 intercessor sergeant and between 2 and 4 intercessors. You can include up to 5 additional intercessors. Change the power rating to 10. Each model is equipped with a bolt rifle, a bolt pistol, frag grenades, and crack grenades. So yeah, you don't even have the options for your alternate bolt rifles, and no power fists on your sergeants. No, because obviously the rules have come out since, yeah. So yeah, that won't happen. So yeah, it's going to be a case of the weapon options are only available on the models that you've got. So everything's going to be WYSIWYG. Certainly for, you know, players of the magazine games. So going on from movement around the terrain, we also have cover, and a little brief explanation of line of sight, and about cover. Now this is interesting because cover is one of those strange things that people tend to have a few house rules, and you know, me and Reese have said this a few times, that you know, when you got line of sight, you know, what part of the model counts as being able to see it. On here it just says that when shooting at models that are behind cover, your model needs to be able to trace line of sight to at least 1 model in the unit. Provided you can see at least 1 model, you can hit every model in that unit, even if you cannot draw a line of sight to them. This represents combatants moving around in battle, even though your models themselves are static, which obviously, yeah, it's basically saying that when you're playing a game of 40k, during your turn, everything happens, well, during both players' turns, everything is actually happening simultaneously. So, you know, your vehicle's on one side of the table, even though you move that as, you know, the first part of your turn, and perhaps you move a unit, you know, of 3 or 4 guys at the end of your movement turn. Essentially they happened at the same time. But then we also have this issue where people are talking about line of sight, about whether, you know, how much of a model do you actually have to see, because, you know, poxwalkers, they got lots of bits of dangly bits, and you've got various what's the word, dynamic poses. If I can grab just a couple of models here, we have just a standard icon bearer for some Gene Stealer cultists here. We have, let's just find one here, that is a Gene Stealer Aberrant, and then why don't we grab something that is a little bit more, here we go, let's have a look. We got Tyrannid here, and these guys have got very different, you know, viewing profiles. Some of them are very small and some of them are quite large. And this guy here, you know, he's got a massive banner compared to the rest of them. It makes him ridiculously tall. And so, you know, a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, some people will tell you that, you know, it doesn't matter how much of the model I can see. If any part of the model is visible, I can shoot at it. GW have themselves tried to explain that, you know, perhaps, you know, things like banners and so on and so forth can't be counted, because, you know, it's unfair. You know, you got a really cool looking model with a big banner, such as, if I find my very first painted model here, with a massive banner on top of his head, and he's hiding behind a wall that's only that big, you shoot the banner and you can wound him, which doesn't seem fair. So you want to snap that off so nobody can shoot at him, and then you're ruining your model. And then you got things like this guy who, you know, he's not particularly big, but, you know, just you get penalized for, you know, just having him at a slightly weird angle perhaps, where this hammerhead might be poking out from behind a wall, yet this guy himself is behind cover. And so what me and Reese have done in the past, and you see it while we play our kill team games, is that on the whole, we will say that if you can see, if it's flesh, or if there is flesh beneath it, then it counts as being able to be shot. And so when we look at this guy, you know, taking a Space Marine for argument's sake, because I mean, to be honest, an entire Tyranid, everything is part of its biology, so you can shoot at any of that. So we take this guy. The only thing here that could be visible that isn't actually flesh is the head of the hammer. So again, if he's behind a wall and you can only see the hammer, you can't shoot at him. But if you can see any part of his body, which, you know, he's got a leg, his arms, his head, his back, pretty much the rest of the model is, if it's visible, you can shoot at it. Now with models like Space Marines, this is where it can get, this is where we talk about having, you know, if it's got flesh behind it, you can shoot it. So from the tip of the sword up to the hilt, if you can see that, you know, you shoot at that, you're just going to hit his weapon. That's not really going to do any damage. Likewise, from the tip of the gun to the handle there, you shoot at the gun barrel. You know, okay, in realistic terms, you might damage the gun, but there's no mechanic for that in 40k, so it doesn't count. You can't shoot at him. Likewise with the banner, down to his head, if you're looking at him straight on, you're going to just put a hole in the banner. It's not really going to hurt him. And also, we have a look at the backpack. If the backpack is just ever so slightly visible, yeah, the rule mechanic would be that there's no rule mechanic for a malfunction in the backpack. Apart from wounds, I suppose you could say that you can argue that. But on the whole, this is what me and Reese have done in our kill team games, is that if he has flesh beneath what you're shooting, you can hurt him. But other than that, it doesn't really matter. GW have FAQ'd it, but rules as written says you can target the base. Exactly, that's kind of what I mean. It's kind of the principle is it doesn't make any sense. Underdog Pain, and welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. So yeah, rules as written can be a little bit, yeah, it's a bit difficult, but I mean it seems to work very well for me and Reese. Is that if you can see flesh, you can shoot at it, or if it's part of the biology of the person. You know, obviously, you know, things like, you know, Necrons don't have flesh, but the biology of the weapon, of the thing, is the arms, the head, the body, but the gun doesn't count. Likewise with Tyranids, if you can see any part of a Tyranid, you can shoot at it. Which makes it difficult, obviously, for things like the pyro, no, not the pyrovore, sorry. What's the big one there? The one with the massive things that come around. The multiple. I've painted one recently. I can't remember what it's called now. It's not a pyrovore, is it? Or a horror specs. Is that the one with all the squid-like things coming right the way around? It makes it difficult to hide one of those things because you can see it. Pleasure, I hope all is well. Yeah, it's not too bad. We're just going through the issue 13, so thank you for asking. But yeah, trying to hide one of those horror specs or whatever, or the Carnifex or whatever it is, it's going to be difficult because technically it's Tyranid and you can shoot at any part of the biology. But, you know, let's say, you know, all rules have got slight issues with them, but I think that little house rule kind of works nicely, so that's what we do. Mr. Tickle, yeah, he does kind of look like Mr. Tickle, actually. So, that's a nice little tangent about line of sight anyway, so we'll move on from there. So then we have charging and fighting with terrain, charging with models on top of the terrain. It's possible to charge up on top of terrain as long as you're able to move within an inch of the model. And then having the fight phase, since models need to be within an inch of an enemy or a friendly model within an inch of an inch in order to fight, terrain may prevent a model from fighting. For example, a model at the base of a container cannot fight a model on the top of the container, as the distance between the two bases is more than 1 inch because it's actually 2 inches. So, you know, it's possible to spread your guys out across the surface of the top of the container to avoid being charged. If you're up there, you can't be charged, because if you can't physically get a model up to the top there, you can't fight. Now, we do have a Poxwalker that's very precariously balanced on here, which is perfectly fine. And you have another model up here. There is space for that model to sit there, but because of the design of the terrain, he is likely to fall off, where we get wobbly model syndrome from. The model can be placed there, but it has to be very delicately placed, or just generally just not quite enough surface area to hold on, and then it'll fall over, and you don't want to damage your models. So you can place it on the deck there, but as long as everybody's happy that the model can sit there, that model can fight, because it's a wobbly model. It then gets placed as close as it can be, and then should you ever need to move that model, if during its movement phase, or its fallback, or consolidation, or pile in, you know that the model actually is there, or it's theoretically here, even though it's actually on the floor. I like your house rule. Reese and I used it Saturday, and it makes sense. Thank you very much. Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense for, you know, that particular house rule. I don't tend to try and house rule many rules, because, you know, you start adding too many house rules, you may as well rewrite the rule set. But for line of sight, that does kind of make sense. So that is tutorial number 15 about the terrain. Let me find that page in the manual, which is that's tutorial number 12, 13, 14 is strength and toughness, and then tutorial number 15 is about terrain. Lovely. And then what do we have here? Tutorial of a replay of mission number 12, which ironically, if we go back to this, here we go. This is what I don't understand. Let's bring this back into here. Now, we just said about the way that this magazine reads, okay? If we go to mission number... Where's mission number 12? There we go. Tutorial mission number 12 of the precious cargo, dangerous cargo. And we have the replay of the mission here. And if we then flip this page over, it's not extra rules, it's data sheets. Yeah, then, so we've got data sheets explained here, and then I put in the replay rule. Doesn't make any sense, does it? I'm hoping that at some point it might be clear why they've done that. But as far as I'm aware, the way that this magazine has been going together while it's been in this magazine, that in itself does not make sense. Just get rid of some of that glue, but it's fighting. There we go. So yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. But you know, maybe it does make sense to somebody else, or perhaps I'm actually putting the replays in the wrong place. Whoops, there is that possibility. But that's coming together quite nicely. There's plenty in there now. I still haven't read through it. So now we'll just come back to the final page. So, like I said, next issue we are going to get the dry brush and the Mechanicus Standard Grey. So we'll understand that it looks like they're going to be using Mechanicus Standard Grey to dry brush the highlights onto the Space Marine, which means this boy's going to come back and carry on doing some painting. And we might even get some of this done on these two guys. The two guys, if you remember, it's been a while since I've actually been painting these. These two models I'm going to be painting exactly as they tell you to do in the book. And I attempted to only use the brushes that they gave you, but I kind of use the starter brushes as dry brushes, and so they're getting a little knackered. So yeah, that didn't last too long, but I am still going to be painting these along in the same way as the magazine tells you to do. as well as being able to follow along with the videos on the channel if you guys wanted to. So that's next week, dry brush and mechanically standard grey, and then the week after, which is, I'm still waiting for this to arrive, so hopefully it'll arrive in time for us to not miss an episode, is a new villain, the biologist Putrefier, and 6 more of those really cheap feeling dice, so we'll not need to worry about that. And then we'll probably get some data sheets, might even get some data sheets in here actually. We do get new rules for your models, so we'll probably get another mission and possibly some more data sheets. Maybe they'll use some of the other models and give you those, and then the new model in 2 weeks time. And that concludes the magazine portion of the show. So let's come in with the container. So I would suggest, before we get cracking on with the container, is use plastic glue, because it just makes it so much stronger, and grab yourself a couple of elastic bands. 2 will do you, but if you happen to get any plastic glue on elastic bands, it eats the elastic and it'll just snap, so have a few handy. These are just cheap ones that I got from around the corner from me. They're about £1, and I got a whole box of them, a whole bag of the things. I can't show you the bag because as soon as I opened it, the bag ripped. So they're just in a pile in the corner of the studio here. So first things first, let's just grab one of these boxes so we can have a look at one of these boxes. If you've never seen these ammo crate things before, they are literally just a case of snipping them off the sprue, and that's done. They are hollow underneath. You can tidy up the if I have a knife handy, grab that. Tidy up the bits where it was attached to the sprue. And essentially this is now ready to paint. You know, you can get some primer on there and just paint that up. I actually have a ton of these things loose. I've got loads of them. They're loose and they're a bit unwieldy now. So I saw some pictures on the internet somewhere of somebody making actual pallets of these things and stacking them up as if they were, you know, recently unloaded from a container or a lorry or whatever vehicle they use to transport cargo such as this. So I might actually do something similar. I might grab some coffee stirrers and build a pallet or something, and make some pallets of these things, and possibly even glue some of the other ones I've already got. So we'll have a look at that. Keep an eye out on the channel for those. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do. And then just before we move on to the container, I will show you quickly. We've got 3 bits of a barrel here. I'll grab myself one of these skull sections, which obviously all of these instructions are in the magazine. But one with a skull, and then one with an aquila. Grab those off of there. Like so. And I really do keep smacking that camera today. Clean off the lugs. There's not many mould lines because the mould line is running quite conveniently right down the seam, so you don't really have to worry about taking that off. And it being scenery as well, it's one of those things that actually you can just be a bit rougher with scenery, because you're not really meant to look at it. You know, and it might sound a bit strange to say it that way, but when you're playing a game, even though the scenery is supposed to be getting in the way, you know, you're using it as cover. When you play, you don't really actually look at the scenery. You're looking at the models. So scenery is one of those things that you can be a bit rougher with and not really care too much in terms of being as tidy as you would be with your regular models. And so on this we got a couple of pegs, very small pegs, they're more like, you know, bumps, some holes on this side, and then that will literally just slot together like that into a barrel, nice and simply as that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hope that my needle works, otherwise I'm going to have to use my brush. Is this going to work? I'll put it on the inside there so I can make sure it's running nicely, and then we can just grab some of this plastic glue along here, and I'm going to run a little bead around the rim there, and before we push them together I'll just run a little bead around that rim there, and one side, grab the rims, push them together. Simple as that. Now there is a little run on, but it's not really that much of an issue. You can, once that's dry, just go run your knife along there when it's dry, and you'll just scrape the plastic off much like a mold line, or just leave it there. You know, the thing with these barrels actually is that certainly around the top, or that's that, yeah, around the top, or if you've, yeah, I've actually got a little bit on my fingers actually, and I'm pressing it all around the model. As long as it doesn't dry with a fingerprint on it, it just adds texture. That's pretty much all it does. So, you know, and these things are greasy, gritty and horrible anyway. So that would look quite nice, and then once you prime it, that will look quite good. So that's a barrel. I mean, you know, I spent far longer on there than I was expecting to spend. But with a container, this is what you guys want to watch tonight. So pretty much with a container, you know, these sprues are pretty much symmetrical. If you cut right down there, those parts are exactly the same as these parts. There is no correct top or bottom to the container. The only thing that does kind of tell you which way up it needs to be is the skulls on the sides of the container and the doors. But it's very difficult to get this wrong. Alright, so first of all we need to cut these off here. Now I don't know why, but these are massive. These bits here are huge, connected to the top and bottom. I'm not sure why, but they could be a pain to get off. But once you get the right angle, you can just snip along there. There we go. Yeah, trying to get in there. There we go. Like I said, it can be a bit of a pain. I'm not quite sure why they're so big. If anybody else knows of any model that has got gates, or sorry, connections as big as that, what are they? Because that is huge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off both the tops and the bottoms, and also both the sides of the container. And then that one's a big one there, right next to this tiny little one. Doesn't make any sense. Alright. And then along here, on the top, it's connected in so many different places. That one, and put along this bit as well. There we are. Right. So turn that to one side. So we've got both the sides and the top and the bottom. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. There's no, you know, that's the left and that's the right, or that's the right, that's the left. It doesn't matter. Same with the top and the bottom. They are identical. Both sides are identical. Both tops and bottoms are identical. So the only thing that matters is to make sure that when you put it on, that both the top and the bottom are, sorry, the skulls, they're all facing the right way. That's literally the only thing you have to watch out for. So, just going to scrape off the connections so that our container fits together nicely. There we are. And then scraping off the connections off the bottom. So I know these are the bottom because that's the feet. The skulls are pointing down, that's the feet. And then also run the knife along the top. There we are. Right, and then this one. There we are. There we are. Right. So one of these is the bottom, one of these is the top. So the bottom is this grid, not that bit. This grid side is up, that goes on the inside, and then the lugs go into the holes just like that. Alright. In the top, the lugs that would go on the inside now actually sit on these things here, and they just sit on the top there. So what I tend to do is I will grab one of these, and because I should close all the doors, it doesn't matter that I get, you know, some glue along there and it melts the inside. So there's one aspect of why I glue the doors shut. And so I'm going to put a dollop of glue on the top of each of these tabs on both sides, like so. And then I can literally stand these up and then make sure that my feet are against the table. Once I've got them in my hands properly, and then I can literally just slide that across the table and it'll just locate itself for me like that. And then I put a lug on, drop of glue on each of these here, like that, and then bring this in, get rid of that bit that's right, and then just kind of grab it and just sit that on top. stand it up on end, grab one of these. Now these are really stretchy, so I spin it in half and then just go over the top, come down a little bit and hold that into place, flip it over. Now if your elastic bands are not quite as stretchy as this and they'll only just go over and hold it nicely, then you can do that way, but I do it like that. There we go. Now this is why I glue the door shut as well. That's not particularly stable, and so put that to one side for a minute. Normally I'll have the doors ready as well, but I didn't want to get everybody confused what I was doing. So we're going to grab both of the doors. Again, both of the doors are exactly identical, so there isn't a front, there isn't a back, they're just a couple of doors. So you can grab them. I love that container and can't wait for all of the terrain. I tell you what, yeah, the containers, I love these containers. They are fantastic. Now obviously I'm going to be putting gluing the guns onto the top of this one, but for argument's sake, if you don't glue the guns on the container and all you have is just tons and tons of these containers, and you'll have tons of barrels as well and boxes, but you can build structures from these boxes if you've got enough of them, and they're pretty cheap. I mean, they're not ridiculously expensive. I can't remember exactly how much they are from GW. I think it's 30 quid for 3. You can build a ton of stuff with these things. You can even build like multi-level structures out of these things. Don't forget, you don't even have to put the doors on. You know, like I said, you could glue the doors open like that, and you got a tunnel that you can use. Blow out the top. You can create buildings out of these things. You know, if you think about it, people have done. You know, people build houses out of shipping containers, and you can use the same principle in 40k, just a lot smaller, in plastic. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the terrain, as well as the new Rise of Pattern ruins that we're going to be getting towards the end. And GW have just announced that they're going to be bringing out Rise of Pattern. Well, they look Rise of Pattern in terms of the new terrain. So yeah, I love terrain these days. Right, so again, make sure the skulls are lined up. Not lined up, sorry, but facing the same way, so we know that this is the bottom of the container. This is the top. The skulls are pointing down. Same with the doors, there's a skull in the middle there, so we know that that's the direction in which they need to face. And the top 2 lugs on the door, bottom 2, there's corresponding holes in the container. So you just put a dollop of glue along there, dollop of glue along there, and along there. Make sure you got it the right way. Grab a door, just slot it in there. There we go, just like that. Now it's a bit loose for now, but don't worry about that. I got a plan for that. Do it both ends. Make sure it's on the right way, and then pop that into place. And then now look at that. Well, it's still a bit loose because the glue's still wet, but now that is a much stronger. Now, because I'm using plastic glue, because I'm welding these doors shut, what you can do is, if you're very careful, run a bead of glue along the door. And what that'll do is it'll just melt the gap between the edge of the door and the wall of the container, and essentially you just weld that shut, and that's done. There you go, that's welded shut. Because the glue's quite liquid, it just sinks its way into the door and you don't have to worry about what it looks like on the inside because you welded it shut, and that will never come apart. And then also what you've done here is, rather than it only having 1, 2, 3, 4 points of contact, it's got the 2 points of contact, but it is right the way along the edge, and so the whole thing is just welded shut. Once that dries, that will never come apart. And you could, if you want to as well, just be careful of the elastic bands, because like I said, plastic glue will eat it. You could go along this seam here where the roof is attached, along there. Elastic bands are in the way, so I'll do that. And again, it just sinks into it. And even if the glue doesn't quite sink into the hole completely, all it's going to do is round off that corner, so it's not sharp, 90 degree on the inside. It'll just look like it's welded. It's terrain. It's fine. You could do the same thing here, but there's not really a lot of space there to get the glue into there, and it won't quite look like a weld. So you could just leave that. You've already got that all the way along there and around the door. That is solid. That's not going to go anywhere. Hey Commander, how you doing? You're at work on a break. Fantastic to see you anyway. Thank you for joining me. So that's the container. That is welded shut. That is not going anywhere. And even now, actually, the glue isn't even 100% dry, and that now feels solid. Honestly, it's got a little bit of wiggle in the doors because the doors still haven't quite dried, but that now feels solid. That's not going anywhere. Right. So there's a few bits and pieces. So the first, before we do the guns, there's a couple of bits left to do. These eagle head things here, they go on the top of the container, and these are literally, they're not just a decorative thing. These are what makes them stackable. You get 4 of them, 1 for each corner of the container. So I'll grab those. Just clean off the mold line. There is a mold line on these ones, so it does take a little bit longer. Once you've done the once you've actually built the box, it's actually the rest of it that takes the time. The box is really easy. I mean, you could line up 15, 20 of them. The container themselves will just take you no time at all. You can get through 15 or 20 containers in about 20 minutes. It's doing all these eagle heads that will take the time. Could you imagine the type of terrain that you could build when you just got these containers that stack up? They're nice and secure, they're nice and stable. Stack them up. If enough of you support me on Patreon, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll challenge, a bit of a challenge myself, and build a nice looking terrain board out of nothing but containers. Anyway, popped in to say hi. Back I go. I'm here till 1 o'clock. Oh damn. Catch you later. Alright, Tara, Commander, thank you for joining us. So there we go. These are the eagle heads. There we go. Right, so the eagle heads slot into these. You can't get it wrong because they kind of just sit themselves in. So we just pop on, drop a glue on each of these corners into that little well that they've got going on there, and just grab it by the beak, just push it in. Whoops, not that hard. Now just push it in, it'll locate itself, and that'll just sit in there quite nicely. That will build, that'll give you something to stack a container above it on, which I'll show you on the containers that I've got to one side here in just a minute. There we are. And lastly, for the container itself, before we do the guns, we also have these keypads here. A little skull thing with a keypad on it. Grab that over there, on there, and then one on this side. Like I said, these sprues are symmetrical, so you can't go wrong. So just clean off the contact points. There is a bit of a mold line on these, but I mean, it's the contact points that are the biggest problem, especially on this kind of industrial style terrain stuff. Because you got a mold line on here, which is caused by, you know, forming out of a mold. You can imagine this industrial stuff is made in a mold anyway. So we got a little wedge thing on the side of the door here, and that tiny little nub thing there. Put a dot of glue on. The glue is working, so we'll pop some glue in there. Tiny dot in there. And then this just sits in there with the little wire thing going into that nub. There we are. I've never known a container to be keypad locked, but well, it is the future. Nice and easy, just scrape that down nice and smooth. Same deal. Dollop of glue in there, dot there, and we'll get that the right way round. There we go. Just push it into place there. So there we go. That's the container built. And then we can do the gun as well. I will do these one at a time, so I'll do one of them. So we have the Storm Bolter holder. I don't know what you would call this. The pintle mount, is that what it's called? So grab that. There's that. We'll scrape that clean. We do want this to be smooth. We don't want any mold lines on this. And like Wayne said earlier, you don't have to, was it Wayne? I think it was Wayne, wasn't it? You don't have to glue these to the container. You could just could build these, leave them freestanding so they can move around and swivel and not be there if you don't want them to be on the container. They do have rules. They are working weapons. You can run up to and use a Storm Bolter. I mean, yeah, if you've only got melee weapons you can use, but I mean they're not particularly strong weapons. But you know, just some extra bullets that you can use around the field if that's what you need to do. Oh no, I've already done that. That's what I'm looking for. Right. that mould line. Oh, that's nasty. Cut that off. Ooh. Don't cut your fingers off. For the sake of expediency, I'm not going to drill the barrel, but there is a barrel there that could be drilled at some point. I'll drill the barrel as well, we're going to be here ages. Got another one of these to do as yet. Suppose it's still not taking that long. Not as long as the aggressors would have taken. If I'd have stayed here and done all of those. Although I've misplaced the bases for those, so I'm not actually going to be building the aggressors. Not for a while, not until I find them, or I have to go out and buy myself some more 40mm bases. But yeah, they would have taken a long while if I was trying to cut those live on stream. It was you, Wayne, right? Yeah, yours are not glued. You like the terrain you can move. Yeah, I'm more of a... Yeah, I tend to not really look at terrain, so... Like I was saying earlier. Right, so this these guns basically go in half across that gun, across that pintle mount there. And you can just, you know, one on either side with it facing forwards. So we can come in with the plastic glue and just a little bit along the front there, on the top, and the back, and just around that gun there, like that. Push it onto place, like that. There we go. And likewise with this one, up on the back, around that gun bit, or around the magazine holder there, like that. Just push that into place there, and then these go into the little holes on there. Now, you know, like Wayne says, that does just sit in there. You don't have to glue it into place. My opinion is I'd rather glue this one into place than having guns lying around. I don't tend to put the guns in the container, on the containers anyway, but I don't mind doing it for one or two of them. So we'll do that, glue it into place there, and then nice and quickly we'll just get through this here. Oh, and also just a point of order, the elastic bands at this point can actually come off now. You know, honestly, plastic glue, it takes a long while for it to actually dry, but to be honest with you, unless you try and pull that thing apart, it's perfectly fine to take those elastic bands off now. You know, once you've given them, you know, 5-10 minutes or so to just kind of sit in place, hold itself together, unless you've put an absolute ton of plastic glue on there, it's not going to come apart again. Not unless you try and pull it apart. So you can take those elastic bands off, which I will be doing shortly once I've done this gun. So we can have a nice look at this thing, and then just before I end the show, I'll have a look at a couple of containers that I've got to the one side here. One that I've painted up, one that I've been playing around with. Some of you may have already seen it on Instagram, but I love an excuse to show off my work. Will they late Warhammer Viking late to the party again? Oh dear. You know, I've had this set up, all this scheduled since Thursday last week. But welcome to the show anyway. Will they stack with the guns on? No, they won't. Nope, the guns are in the way. which is why I don't tend to use the guns, to be honest, because I don't use them in the game, and yeah, I can't stack the containers up. But to be honest with you, I think it's because I used to work in the shipping industry. I don't see why you would stick random guns onto a container. It doesn't make any sense to me. I do have a little bit of a modified container just off to the side here, which I'll show you in just a moment, but there is a reason for it. But adding guns to a random container, or even to all of your containers, it doesn't make any sense. You know, if your cargo is important enough to need protecting, then you'll take an armed escort. You don't arm the container. You might armor it, but you don't arm it. Doesn't make any sense. Not in my head, anyway. So yeah, the guns do get in the way of stacking the containers, and yeah, there we are. But done on that one. There we go. So that's now ready to go and get primed and painted, which it might get a video for, but we'll see. Sorry bud, hope the show has gone well. First day back after 2 weeks off. I'm so pooped. Nah, the show's been alright. The show's been great. But thank you for joining, even if it's at the end. So, let's have a look at this container here, which some of you may have already seen already. It is my salt weathered container. If I bring up my, I can actually drop the camera a little bit. Wait. I can grab the focus. If you just bear with me just for a second. Grab the focus, there we go. Hopefully we can fiddle around with this. This work? No, that won't work. Try this one. That one works. There we go. There we are. Right. Okay. So let's have a gander at this container here. Is my salt weathered container. I do have plans to do a video of salt weathering at some point in the very near future. It's not a technique you can do without an airbrush, or at least using rattle cans. But it's a container that's been weathered. So the paint is chipping off and stuff, so there will be a video about these coming up in the future. And like I said, the little eagle head things here, like I was pointing to you earlier, they just sit nicely on there so that your containers will stack nicely on top of each other. But yeah, if we try and do this the other way with the guns get in the way, so they can't be stacked. But that's not to say that you can't stack your container sideways and build yourself some interesting fortifications. So there's that. So I just thought I'd show off a container that I have already painted. And then I have another interesting little thing here. This is from the Tyrannid Kill Team box. One of my containers. Again, this is one that won't stack because of the what I've done to it. But these are the Gene Stealer infestation nodes that come with the Gene Stealer sprue from the Kill Team box, as well as the container as well. This is why I've got so many containers. And excuse me, I'm going to cough. Sorry about that. So yeah, I thought I'd give something a bit of a try. So instead of, I'm not going to be cutting into this one, I've just added to it. The idea being, and this is what I was saying, I've got a little bit of I have customized this one, has got a little bit of fluff to go with it, is that at some point in transit a gene stealer managed to, I don't know, get in here or lay eggs or whatever it is that causes these to sprout up, and has infested this container. Perhaps a gene stealer cult has maybe planted the gene stealer inside it, or whatever it is. So that is now an infested. It's a just something a little fluffy, something to look at when if you are playing a game and you want to see something on the board. Especially if I'm going to be getting more of these things soon as well. Especially if I buy the Astra Militarum Kill Team box. You get a container in there as well, or you get a couple of containers in there, I think. So yeah, we've got plenty of these on the go. So there's just 3 of them. I think I've got a couple more locked away. I'm going to get a couple more coming in through the Conquest magazine as well. So yeah, containers everywhere. Let's just bring this back up so that you guys can see a little bit better. There we are. So there we go. Yeah, there's a lot going on there. So I'm looking forward to these containers, and I hope you guys enjoy the videos that I do for them. So bang on 8 o'clock tonight. I know I started a little bit late today as well, but hopefully that's been an interesting show for you guys. I enjoyed it. I do like these containers as well. They're fantastic. They really are brilliant. And once you've got a few of them, you can really start to create some really interesting effects on the old battlefield there. So yeah, they're good. I like them. So I don't know if there's anything else for me to chat about, but one thing I will point out is I haven't done the video for it yet, but keep your eyes on the channel for a Q&A invitation. Basically, as of the beginning of this year, I thought, well, what I want to do is once a month, the last Friday of every month, I'm going to do kind of a hobby channel studio update kind of thing. Let people know what I've been up to. If I haven't posted it anywhere, tell them where I want to be, any plans that I've come up with. And also for you guys, the viewers at home, to kind of ask me stuff. The patrons already know about it. They have got a post on Patreon that they can throw some questions down, and those are the ones I get to first. And then with any time left at the end of the video, I'll answer any other questions. So what I will say is, don't post any questions here, but you can send questions to Facebook or Instagram if you want, or at some point soon, possibly tonight, but I don't know about that. I will post a Q&A invitation video on here on YouTube, and then that will be an invitation where you can post questions there as well. So you can post questions on YouTube, questions on Facebook, questions on Instagram. And also, if you're a Patreon, you can throw a question on your Patreon, on the Patreon page, and I'll go through those first. As well as doing an update on the channel, an update of where I want to be, an update of where I want to go, what I've been up to, and that sort of stuff. So there's that. Other than that, I'm just going to keep cracking on with these videos. Obviously, you know, the Patreons, they already know what's coming. They've already seen it. I think I'm about 3 weeks ahead at the minute. I want to try and extend that a little bit, get some videos out over the next week or so. I've got plenty planned. It's just a case of getting it done. So there we go. Your models made it. Whoop whoop. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Throw your pictures, all of the viewers. If you want to send me some pictures to fill up this space here, feel free. If you send them to me on Instagram in private message, or if you want to send them to me via Facebook. If you've got Instagram, let me know, because you get put on my story as well as everybody. Chick Paints, for argument's sake, Reese, Nuts Paint there. You get put on my story, and then I'll save the picture and put it here for everybody to have a look at. they randomly cycle through. So you know, there's no preferential treatment going on over here. It's just a case of it goes in a folder on my computer, and then I tell my computer to just display images from that folder randomly. So that'll just cycle its way through it. So yeah, and don't forget, using the hashtag BFOPSLive, and if it's a Conquest model, like a container if you happen to have one, or maybe some Death Guard or something, stick it up on your BFOPS Conquest as well. Veggie Viking. You're not veggie, are you? Oh dear. I couldn't go without bacon. Right. So I think that pretty much. Oh, have you changed your page? Alright, let's have a good look here. Hang on a minute. Have you changed the name on your Instagram, have you? We'll have to have a look at that. When was this? Have we lost the link? I don't know what that is. I think, Wayne, you sent me a message at some point. I have no idea what that means. Yeah, okay, sure. If you've changed your Instagram, then yeah, I'll put them up again. So, yeah, definitely. Alright, well, I think that pretty much brings me to the end of the show. It's been a pleasure to have you here. You're a veggie too. Oh, dear. No, I couldn't do that. Definitely not. So, alright, well, thank you on that bombshell. I'm going to say thank you very much to Underdog, Wargamer Viking, Reese, Wayne, you dropped in as well, Chris, of course, and Wayne, Reese. I think I've said everybody I try. There's been a lot of people in here tonight. It's going to get difficult trying to remember everybody's name. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure. And thank you all for watching this one. I'll catch you in the next one, alright? Ta-ra.